that America will become a land sharing the fruits of the land, not for the favored few, not to satisfy greed, but that all may live in a land in which the Lord has provided an abundance sufficient for the luxury and convenience of the people in general, I think.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the ghost of Smedley Butler here with the ghost of Judge James Horton. We're the Yellowhammers. How you doing, Judge?
I'm great, General. It's good to see you, you world traveler.
Good to see you. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Been too long, but here we are.
Gallivanting around the world.
Back in Yellowhammer Studios.
There we go.
So what are we talking about today?
Let's talk about Elon Musk and the DOGE Department. Yep. It's pretty topical because he has gone in and started slashing all sorts of federal government funds from USAID to NIH, basically any governmental program.
The FAA.
I looked at
Consumer Protection Bureau, the Labor Board, any like alphabet soup agency that you've ever heard of, they're coming for.
The Department of Education.
Department of Defense.
Yeah. Does Elon Musk and DOGE, under the authority of the executive branch, have the power to do this?
Fuck no.
Why not?
All right. A bunch of reasons. So it goes back, and you and I discussed this before we went on, and this is a bit of like a legal term. It goes back to Clinton in 1998 and line item veto.
What is a line item veto?
So we all know like veto power, where the president can reject legislation passed by Congress, which can of course be overwritten. And so the president has to reject either all of it or sign all of it. The line item veto was an act passed by Congress that purported to give the president the power to veto certain portions of legislation. It was allegedly to like reduce the pork, like the special interest money, and help balance the books. And so the president would be able to go through and say, okay, this particular section is wasteful, therefore I'm going to veto that, but not the full bill. And so Congress gave him that power, but pretty quickly the Supreme Court reeled it in and said, no, line item vetoes violate the presentment clause of the Constitution, meaning that all laws have to be presented to Congress and passed through Congress. And so that's exactly this situation, but just delayed, where Bill Clinton was using that power as the bills came to his desk to like delete certain sections. Elon Musk, not even Donald Trump, but an unelected private citizen, is deleting these government agencies that are created by congressional statute, that were presented to Congress, that were approved by Congress, put into law by Congress, can only be removed by Congress.
The issue I have, and it's the fundamental issue of, how many divisions does the Pope have type of thing, of how do you stop this? Like, what are the checks and balances on such an action? I know everyone's going to say impeachment and all that.
That's not going to happen.
Agreed.
It's dead on arrival at this point.
So you've got the judiciary.
It's the only option.
But what happens if the executive branch just completely ignores the judiciary?
You get into the constitutional crisis, which we're currently in, if we're being frank, where the only thing that the federal judges can do is send the U.S. Marshals. And do you send the U.S. Marshals to arrest a sitting president? Would a Republican Supreme Court with a 6-3 majority invite that clash?
They're going to have to deal with it. I mean, I guess.
Though?
They could turn it down if it comes in front of the court. I don't know who would bring it. I don't know who's got standing to bring such an issue in front of the court.
I mean, theoretically, any private citizen, right?
No.
I mean, so Congress could.
Congress
absolutely could. Any Congress member. States could do that. Anyone who's been adversely affected by any of these decisions, hell, theoretically, I think that individual employees of these agencies could bring that suit.
I think they could do it on their individual behalf. I don't think they have the ability to go after the executive branch as a whole for these actions. I think it's more of an injunctive relief.
No, it's definitely injunctive relief. Yeah. It's not going to be like criminal action. The Supreme Court's already telegraphed not any of that. But the bigger question for me is, does the court have any interest in reining in this conduct? I mean, we're talking about Samuel Alito, a man who on the day Joe Biden was elected president, flew his flag upside down at half-mast at his compound. Right. So does that man want to reel in this executive excess?
It would if it was a Democrat.
You damn right.
But right now, the problem is the laws are not being applied the same way to any presidential body based purely on political affiliation.
They're not being applied in good faith.
Exactly. And I think that is a huge problem. And it's how countries become banana republics and, authoritarianism and fascism takes hold is the degradation of the judicial branch.
Congress, and you hear this all the time, Congress has the power of the purse, and they do. Article 1 makes that abundantly clear. But what happens when you have a Congress that is all too happy to cede the power of both houses to the executive branch? I mean, it seems to me that Congress is currently saying, or at least the Republican branch of Congress is currently saying, do whatever you want to do. We'll just hang out here. Let us know if you need us.
I feel like there would be a greater leg to stand on if the president was actually doing this. But the fact that it's a third party,
private citizen, foreign citizen.
Yeah.
I guess he's an American, technically.
Jumping in here and dictating to America what is and is not appropriate for spending. That's not his job. That's Congress's job.
It is Congress's job. And it might be different if these weren't agencies that were created by acts of Congress. They have to be undone by acts of Congress. And as you're pointing to, third-party private citizen, billionaire, richest man in the world can't do that.
Well, Elon Musk is obviously the greatest American citizen we've ever had. And
right.
He knows what's best for everybody, which means...
Just go ahead and delete Washington on Rushmore and install Musk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and slash the budget for everything but whatever Tesla and SpaceX is
whatever he's getting paid.
It's, he's more than willing to destroy funding for the average Alabamian who works at UAB. But God forbid you take away his, clean energy credits he gets for Tesla cars that he's manufacturing. Tesla's not doing too hot.
Tesla's not doing great.
I was looking at some of the numbers on Tesla. The only reason that they made profit last year is because they sold $600 million in Bitcoin.
So have you seen the drop in sales in Europe? I mean, precipitous drops, right? 65% across all these countries. And Tesla, as it is a meme stock. There's no intelligent argument. I'd love to look up what the PE ratio is.
Oh, it's nowhere near what it's supposed to be.
Right. It's ridiculous. The stock is so overvalued, so expensive, and it's a meme trade. People trade it based on their belief in the cult of Elon.
I firmly believe Wall Street right now has no basis in reality of what the actual economic impact of every. Right now, Wall Street does not reflect the economy of America.
It doesn't.
It is some sort of gamified, casino.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
As long as money keeps being pumped into Wall Street, stocks go up.
Right.
And so money is still being pumped in. But we have two economies. We've got the billionaire economy.
That's doing great.
And then there's the rest of us, which is not so great.
I remember when there was a big stink about the price of eggs.
And people were pissed when they were $5 a carton. Pissed.
It's up to 10 now. Good
right.
Lord.
Hell, they're $8.99 at effing Aldi.
Yeah, avian flu is taking it out, and there's
deporting all the egg pickers.
Inflation. I looked it up. Inflation right now
ticked up.
It's pretty serious.
Inflation came in hot last month.
It came in very hot.
So you take those things, and then you take Elon Musk, who we all know about the fork in the road email. We know who that came from. The email that was sent out to all federal employees about taking this resignation offer they pay you out through September was written in the exact same manner as the one that he sent to all the Twitter employees when he first bought it.
Twitter's doing really well right now, too.
Worth about $6 billion compared to the 44 that he bought it for. Crushing it. But that's the thing. Is the success of if the success of any of these companies were his actual goal, would he be doing what he's currently doing?
No. I think this is an act of desperation to try to keep his head above water, and he needs all the subsidies from the American government as he can to at least make it to the next year or two, because everything he has is leveraged on.
Everything he has is in equities. It's in the stock market. As far as like liquid capital, he would tell you he has very little of that.
Well, he uses Tesla stock to borrow to buy Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's all going to depend on if Tesla goes down at any significant rate, it's a cascading effect of margin calls he's going to have to face.
So that raises the question, would the banks that loaned him the money against the Tesla stock to buy Twitter, are they interested in calling that debt due? Because if he defaults on it, where does that leave those banks? Billions of dollars in the hole. Can they sustain that?
What's that whole saying?
Too big to fail?
Well, yeah. It's basically, if you give me $100 not a default, that's a problem for me. If you give me $1 billion and not a default, that's a you problem.
That's exactly where we are. Yeah. I think Elon's lack of solvency when it comes to Twitter is a them problem. I don't think it's a him problem. I think where this becomes a him problem is if, like you're alluding to, Tesla goes, it takes a sharp decline because it's already a meme stock. It's not worth a fraction of what it's trading at.
I saw it drop 10% a couple of days ago.
It's going to get hammered. I mean, high-profile people are selling their Teslas, right? The swastikars, as they call them. But the point is, in bringing it back full, what?
Stephen Fry came out with a really good joke. It's Elon Musk, can't be a Nazi because Nazis actually made good cars.
Bringing it back to the economy generally and what DOGE is doing. Pop quiz. Who is the largest employer in America?
The Department of Defense?
The federal government.
Okay.
Close. So you were picking up what I was putting down, right? The federal government. If we lay off 30, let's say less than they want. Let's say we lay off 30% of those employees in government restructuring and downsizing. What does that do to us? One, to the economy in general, but two, what does that do to the available labor pool and the value of that labor?
It's going to flood the market with talent,
with cheap labor,
because
you're going to have like that supply is going to be the supply of people available to work for you is going to explode.
My big issue is how badly the freeze in USAID and NIH money is going to completely fuck over Alabama.
All right, let's tie it back to Bama, and then we'll expand back to the economy as a whole, because I think all that goes hand in hand.
What do you think is the largest employer in the state of Alabama?
Walmart.
UAB.
Is it really? Because it was Walmart like last year. They've been trading 1 and 2.
It's UAB right now.
Okay.
And UAB has been receiving $150 million in research grant money that is now going to be taken away. So I was looking at the numbers, and it was going to be potentially 4,700-ish jobs annihilated as of right now.
Wow.
And you're looking at 1,000 businesses that depend on supporting those types of jobs. And these are highly skilled people. You're looking at, researchers, doctors,
nurses, technicians,
everything that has to do, cancer research, dealing with, pediatrics and like across the board. All of this has just gotten blown away by Emperor Musk.
And if we, that's not just one payment. It's not like we're just missing the one lump sum payment of however many $100 million to UAB. That money goes to UAB, gets spent by UAB on Alabama companies, Alabama workers who turn around and again spend that money in our local communities. So it doesn't just happen once. That's a constant, like, revolving effect of money changing hands, and that's the economy. That's our economy.
That's called
and that's gone.
Monetary velocity.
That's exactly what that is. It's the consumption function.
But the fundamental problem with Alabamians is they don't realize how backwards we are as far as our economic output is.
Blaming the poor people for your problems?
Well, do you think we're a taker state or are we a maker state?
Oh, we're a taker state.
We are one of the largest taker states. So
what do you mean by taker state?
For every dollar we pay into the federal government in taxes, we take out $2.01.
Because we can't take care of ourselves.
Because we can't take care of ourselves. We're talking about Medicaid, Medicare, federal grant money, Defense Department spending in Huntsville. Like, we're just talking about dollars flowing into the state of Alabama. And it's been like this since the 1940s when, FDR came down here with his jobs program to create, dams, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Central Alabama Electric Co-op and all that. Like, all of that was the federal government coming down here being like, you're too poor, we're going to make you less poor.
It's like that line in that Alabama song, Song of the South, Mr. Roosevelt's going to save us all.
He did.
And he came down here, and by God, he did.
He did. And now we're sitting here being like, we're tired of all this.
We're dismantling FDR's New Deal level reforms that have provided stability to this country economically for nearly 100 years, for 80-something at this point.
Alabama's going to have a harsh awakening because it's going to come back and nail them in the face very quickly.
So,
we're talking Depression level shit.
Absolutely.
For Alabama.
Take UAB, right? UAB is still going to exist after this National Institute of Health money goes away. It'll downsize. It'll take a tremendous hit.
Well, UAB just bought St. Vincent's.
They did. But what happens? Remember, we talked about rural hospitals in one of our very first episodes. We talked about the availability of health care to rural Alabamians and how there is an epidemic in this state of a lack of qualified healthcare professionals, particularly in these rural areas. We talked about all the rural hospitals that have closed. We talked about Medicaid expansion and how important that was to the future of these hospitals. What happens when we gut Medicare and Medicaid?
Oh, there's
it's going to be doomsday for rural healthcare in this country.
Well,
particularly the state.
Yeah, especially the state. We don't. Our largest exports are, I think, automobile manufacturing.
Yeah.
And timber.
Yeah.
I think are like 1 and 2. And
timber should be okay.
Timber, I mean, we'll keep growing trees just fine.
The yellow fella's going to do just fine.
Yeah, and Auburn basketball and Auburn football are going to be great.
Right.
Yeah, we're down.
Got your NIL money.
Hell yeah. But
little column A, little column B.
All the economic, infrastructure into UAB, the growth of Birmingham, the growth of Huntsville, and the growth of Mobile is going to be, we're going to blow both of our feet off with a double barrel shotgun.
So outside of UAB, the other largest employers in the state are generally college institutions.
Oh, yeah.
UA, AU, you name it.
UAH,
right?
South Alabama.
All these. Troy is a huge campus. Okay. What happens when all that research money dries up? What happens to those jobs and the money those people spend in the community? Take it to Huntsville. You mentioned yourself. Talking about all these defense contracts. Huntsville lives on government money. Huntsville exists because of government money. Hell, Huntsville was essentially founded on government money. If we talk about Operation Paperclip post-World War II, where we set up the American space program there, you would be hard-pressed to find a city in the country that that's going to be more devastated by these cuts than Huntsville, Alabama. That's where I'm from. It's where I was born, where I grew up. The complaints that I've heard from friends who still live there, that work on the arsenal, that were working from home, right? All of a sudden, everybody's ordered to come back to the office, and what used to be a 30-minute commute is now an hour-and-a-half commute because of the sheer volume of people trying to get to the arsenal.
Right.
And that's just opportunity cost from time, 3 hours a day that these people are missing for no reason.
Right.
That's not even the economic impact of the city, and it's going to be doomsday for the state.
I mean, it's bad all the way around. And so there were 2 bills put before Congress addressing specifically USAID, and that was one of the Department of State Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriations Act of 2024. Mm-hmm. And there was another one that was brought in front of in front of Congress regarding USAID's budget. Both of these bills were defeated. One of them was down 102 to 326, and one introduced by Matt Gaetz lost by 115 to 312. Only 2 Alabama representatives voted in favor of cutting USAID, and
Mike Rogers and Mo Brooks,
Barry Moore out of Enterprise, and Gary Palmer
I missed him
out of Birmingham, out of Hoover.
That was a shot in the dark.
Representative Robert Aderholt was leading the charge against this. Do you know what committee Robert Aderholt sits on? He's a representative out of Haleyville.
Tell me, I don't.
he sits in charge of the federal grant spending department. So the one man in charge of the Department for Grants that knows how much money we're getting into the state
was against cutting USAID.
Cutting any of those funding for the state of Alabama. He knows how much is like we've had.
He knows that's his pork.
Yes. You know, Dick Shelby, God rest his soul.
He knew how to bring home the bacon.
He brought home the bacon. We got 20 buildings in this state named after Shelby, but they're all under academic institutions.
I took math in the Shelby Center.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's what our representatives are supposed
to do.
Yeah, you go there, you come back, you help develop Alabama, you know, create growth, create jobs, try to help your community. Right now, the only person benefiting from these cuts is Elon Musk.
Absolutely. And what he's really doing from these cuts is, we alluded to it earlier, he is driving down the cost of labor, which is one of his main inputs. What they are doing, these billionaires, you're human capital to them. They don't see you as people. They see you as the nameless face. That's exactly it. We are the product for them. We are both what they are selling and who they are selling to. Actually, I take that back. We're not who they're selling to, because what they're doing is selling us and our data to other billionaires and other actors.
Right. I'm going to take us off on a tangent because you just talked about something I've been thinking about for a while now, and basically, there's a underlying current that's flowing through the United States population that is distrustful of any institution, especially governmental institutions. And I've been struggling to find out why that is. Like, why are people so distrustful of, you know, vaccinations or the doctors or, you know, people that we put in places of power to tell us kind of, you know, we're not experts in this, tell us what's going on. And there's been this massive backlash to vaccinations, whatever.
Against climate change science, you name it.
Right. And I think I've come to the conclusion that every American feels like every corporation, business, governmental entity is trying to get one over on them. Like they're, you know, Verizon does all this cheap shit.
So where I'm coming from on that very thing is, I think there's actually more of a trust in the population in private businesses than there are in government. And so the question for me is why? And I think what I've heard my entire life, especially here, is, oh, the government can't do shit right. You know, you need to send it to private equity. You need to, you know, business does it better. Do they? Like, does privatization improve outcomes for the population?
At one point, yes. Sometimes yes. The biggest problem I've seen is, I call it the Jack Welchification of private business, where you do whatever, you slash everything, fire all your employees just to make quarterly profits just a little bit better. Yeah. You know, and that trust and the, you know, the family that, you know, those Ford unions used to build in the, you know, 50s and 60s and 70s, all that's been gone. Like, they've smashed the unions. They've tried to lower the cost of employees while raising executive pay, all to just make that ticker go up a little bit.
Just so they can post an earnings beat.
Right. Right.
So I agree completely. And where I would take it from there, I think, is, are there some things, because you obviously said some people can do things. Sometimes private equity does things better. Sometimes privatization does things better. But we're talking about fundamentally different goals. If you're a corporation, as you alluded to, your goal is to provide profit to shareholders, post earnings beats.
Right.
If you're a government, your only duty is to provide the quality service to the people. And the argument, of course, is, oh, well, the government doesn't do that. But I would push back, and I would say, who does a better job of providing power, TVA or Alabama Power?
Yeah, I'd say TVA.
I would say TVA. As someone who's lived in both footprints, I don't think there's a comparison. And TVA is this quasi-public-private sort of special entity. But they're certainly not private in the same sense that Alabama Power, a Southern company, is. And so to roll it back to DOGE, I actually think that's Elon Musk's ultimate goal, is the more government services that he can destroy that there's a market for. The FAA, the Consumer Protection Bureau, but particularly like things like the FAA, I think he thinks he can be that service that replaces them, because they'll have to turn to private equity to fill those gaps. And that opens up avenues for profit for the billionaire class. That's the goal, is to open up more markets for them to pump the middle class for money.
I mean, possibly. I definitely see DOGE, by destroying all these governmental offices and jobs, flooding the market, and really
lowers their own labor costs at Tesla,
Yes.
at SpaceX, at
Right.
PayPal, at whatever the fuck else he owns.
I just don't see how you could turn the FAA like private. I've seen in the South and Alabama.
He'd want to do it.
especially.
He'd want to do it with AI. I mean, he would. Like that. That's where he's at. Like, he thinks that he can replace these people, do it better, but you're going to pay him for profit for it. Like, what he's doing is he's creating a demand for a service by deleting the service currently provided by the government.
It's like a firefighter lighting a fire, being like,
Shit, you need me to put that out now,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
And that's where we're headed. You combine that with the fact he's lowered his own labor costs at Tesla, at SpaceX. Everything he's doing doesn't benefit you, the person, us, the people. It benefits him, the billionaire. And why do you think every other billionaire from Bezos to Zuckerberg, and there's a reason I picked a B and a Z, from Bezos to Zuck, are headed to Mar-a-Lago to kiss Trump's ass? They want a slice of this robbing, this fleecing of America.
I do believe the Democrats are guilty of the same thing.
Oh, I do too. And let me tell you where they did it. Or go ahead and then give me yours, and then because I agree.
I think they sold out to Wall Street in the mid-'90s under Clinton. I think, giving Nancy Pelosi doing the insider trading, making all that money
That hurts.
Yeah, I mean that was a very clear abuse of power.
Mm-hmm.
Them rewarding all of their donors with large governmental contracts, and it feels like both the Democrat and the Republican Party view the federal government as some sort of cash cow that they need to suck dry before the other party comes to power. And it's a mad grab for funds before this, merry-go-round comes to a screeching halt.
I have a different starting point for the sellout of the Democratic Party to the billionaires. And I don't want to paint the party pejoratively, because there's a wing and everybody's like, meh. But the Bernie Sanders AOC wing of the party have not sold out to the billionaires.
Meh.
There's a reason that they can't get any leadership spots, right? So going back to Citizens United in 2010, which we beat like a dead horse, but I'm just to the ears. I'm just getting started. Money is speech. Corporations are people. You combine the two. And what we did was we took...
All right, interrupt you right
Yeah.
now. If money is speech and corporations are people, corporations should get the goddamn death penalty.
They should get the death penalty.
You should
Purdue
be able to
Pharma
send a
shouldn't
corporation
exist.
to jail if they're,
Right.
hold them to the same standards
Right.
as a person.
As you hold a person. But when they took the reins off campaign finance limitations, suddenly you need billionaire donations to compete, to be competitive on a national level. What that made was the national elected politicians beholding to the people with money that can finance campaigns in a way that they never were. And so I think from that point in 2010, you had this gradual seep of billionaires, especially when the rise of Silicon Valley. You had that because those people initially fell more left, they got in bed together, and especially up to 2020.
Silicon Valley took a hard right turn.
They took a hard right turn this last election, which I'm getting to their heel turn. So come to 2020. Trump's running for his second term. Biden's challenging. That was the first time in my lifetime, probably yours, that billionaire money on Wall Street went hard towards the Democrats for the first time. And I think in the past 4 years, That's where the Democrats sold out labor unions.
Right.
Is they heel turned to the billionaires because they thought, oh, thank Christ, these people are going to help us kick Trump out. And they didn't. They went back to him in 24.
Right.
So I think they sold their soul for essentially a 4-year reprieve from Trumpism.
The Dems, in their infinite short-sightedness, blew away their grassroots ground games.
Yes.
Every person that's willing to knock on doors, willing to put in the time and energy for little to no money to do the right thing, like they had under Obama in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
They just destroyed all that by caving into Wall Street, thinking, okay, we've got to do this to compete.
We got to have the money to compete nationally, run the ads, et cetera, et cetera.
I think it was a slow slippage even before that, way back when Clinton started distancing himself from the unions. Initially, back in the mid-90s, he passed some non-favorable labor laws, but now that is completely, Wall Street has hijacked the Democratic Party, and it's very obvious. And
the Democratic Party is still playing lip service to being the party of the people, and I think, in fact, they're closer to it. The current iteration of the Republican Party is not big C or little c conservative. They're conservative, period, in the way that Ronald Reagan was. What they are currently doing is a radical reshaping of government that no other Republican president in the history of this country would have supported, would have followed, period. So we have to recognize that what we're seeing now out of the current Trump administration is a radical break from anything that we have ever seen before from either party.
I completely agree with that. I think it was a lot of frustration on the part of the electorate.
Oh, yeah. These are protest votes.
These are definitely, the wild swings left and right.
Or people that stayed home because they were like, well, shit, the Democrats don't really care about me.
Big
example of that.
Joe Biden should have done something. Like when he forgave student debt and the Supreme Court was like, oh, you can't do that.
You should have done it anyway.
Should do it.
Yeah.
Make them stop you. Like, I feel like, the Democrats
the Democrats play by rules that they don't.
Yeah.
That the Republicans do not play by.
There's, one team's playing hardball, the other one's playing, Fisher Price.
But they're all beholding to people who aren't us, who aren't average, hardworking Americans. If you make less than $1 million a year, you have nothing in common with Jeff Bezos. You have nothing in common with
I would say
Bill
if you
Gates.
make less than $10 million a year, like if you make $1 million a year, you're just now reaching middle class in America.
You do not play by the same rules as them. You don't have the same economy as them. You're not governed the same way as they are. There are different rules. There are rules for them, rules for thee, not for me. It's sort of the way they look at it, right?
My problem with our billionaire economy that we have right now is that it's the most inefficient economy we've ever seen. There is no way.
Elon Musk's $200 billion is not working for anybody.
Hell no. And there's
It's sitting there.
It's just sitting there. There's no innovation.
It's not moving through the economy.
There's no velocity of capital. Like,
the more money billionaires have, the less money circulates in America to grow our GDP. That is a fact. And somehow or another, these people have convinced the average person that the only way for them to succeed, for them to grow, is to give billionaires more money so they can create for you. That's not what they're doing. If Elon Musk had a demand that he wanted to fill, don't you think he would sell a couple $1 billion of Tesla stock and fill that effing demand? He has the ability to do that with no one's help.
well,
He doesn't need your tax break. He doesn't need J.P. Morgan to loan him money. He's got it.
well, let's not insult, Elon Musk here. Like, that man is perfect in every way. shape, or form.
Right. Savior of the country.
Him and his weird MAGA influencer mail-in baby.
Right. The reptilian baby's got scales, little lidded eyes.
See, I was going to go fish,
Gills.
Yeah. But this comes back to Alabama and the fact that our representatives are not fighting for the state of Alabama. I am in Gary Palmer's district, and that idiot is running around trying to kill the economy of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
How are we not as a state being like, what is going on here? I did see where Katie Britt's out there trying to do something, but
Katie Britt is the closest thing that we have in this state to a Reaganite principled conservative. And even then, when she came out against Matt Gaetz, he got canceled by the right.
Tuberville's a straight up ass clown, but that's
straight up
neither here nor
clown.
there. I mean, it's nice for him to be Florida's third senator. That's nice.
The entire country is going to get hammered by this. It is going to get absolutely hammered economically. But Alabama, perhaps worst of all.
Absolutely. We're usually recession proof thanks to the governmental aid that we have.
Yeah.
So when everything's going way up, we just go up a little. When everything's going way down, we just go down a little.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to impact Alabama way more than any type of wild economic swings like '08 or anything like that.
You asked me why the people of Alabama seem either not to care or not to be aware that we're being fleeced, that we are being constantly convinced to vote against our interest and for the billionaire class. And I have an answer. My mother is college educated, has an advanced degree. She's watching my kid the other day, and as she comes in and take him over for me, she's, she never talks politics, and she brings it up. She says, how do you even tell what's real anymore?
Oh.
She said, I go on the internet, I watch the news, and everybody's saying such different things, and I don't know what to believe. Yeah. So I just don't pay attention anymore.
I think that's a feature and not a...
that's a feature and not a bug.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Information overload.
Paralyze you with indecision because you don't know what to believe. Meanwhile, they're saying, look here. And behind you, they just pulled your wallet out.
Right.
You've just been pickpocketed and don't know it.
I was looking at some of the statistics, and the income inequality is greater right now than it was during the French Revolution.
But the poor people are the enemy, General. It's the poors. Can't let them poors get some welfare. If you do, it's taking money out of your kid's mouth. Or food out of their mouth, whatever. They don't need money.
I can't, I can't believe they're trying to live.
Right. How dare you want to exist?
Get
you
them
damn
out of here.
poor.
Who is thinking of the shareholders in this time of need?
Right. I mean, God, we got to provide that 10% return. Got to. But the point is, the fact that people think that the richest man on the planet, to become a billionaire, let me just ask you this. If you become a billionaire, can you be a good person? Can you be a billionaire and a good person, quote unquote good? Or is what you have to do to reach billionaire status so fucked up that your soul goes on the way?
Yeah. I think so. I think
I do too.
You've got to step on so many heads to get to that.
Step on so many.
You've got to be a psychopath or sociopath at some level to do that.
And so somehow we've convinced ourselves that the person in the world who's been the very best at stepping on throats to get ahead cares about us.
All right. I'm going to ask you this question. And we know a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Think of the top 10 wealthiest friends you know.
Okay.
And I want you to think of their personal relationships with the opposite sex and tell me if you think they've acted noble and loving and caring in those relationships.
No. And I don't hesitate to say that. No.
I mean, it's...
And I'll say this. So some of the people that we know, I would expect to step on my throat to get ahead.
Yeah.
And I would not take it personally from them because they don't see it that way. They see it as the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that.
I don't feel that way.
I'll stretch it out to like 15 and 20 people.
Yeah.
But like it's
But it's how they were raised. It's what they were taught.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump was taught the same thing. Deny responsibility, deflect profit.
Right.
Never admit defeat, never admit you're wrong, never backtrack.
Well, he's getting very good at lighting fires and pretending to be the savior.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his MO from here on out.
Let me ask you this. when is it that Wall Street takes notice of what's going on? Because stocks have been trading sideways. It's a little disingenuous to say that the S&P 500 hit a new record today. Sure, it did, but it was up like 0.17%, right? It barely budged. So if that's what we're talking about, when does Wall Street take notice of the impending economic disaster?
I think it's going to be home mortgages again.
And then the second question is, when Wall Street does eventually take notice of the absolute economic disaster, this iceberg that we are steaming full speed ahead at, when the market does take notice, does that reel Trump in? Is that the check and balance for him? Not Congress, not the judiciary, but the market.
No.
You don't think he cares that he's getting like an all-time high S&P 500, and that if, let's say, it loses 10% of its value, we hit recession, that he's not like, oh, shit, let's reverse course?
No. I think, one, he's too old to care. He's trying to collect as much money as possible for his family, to the extent that he. Oh my God.
Yeah, we're not going to go there, but that's too off topic.
But basically, Wall Street has been on a sugar cocaine high.
For 15 years?
For free money for 15 years.
So it's too big to fail. Pump that shit up and it's been rolling.
They're trying desperately. I mean, it's going to change eventually. Like, you can't keep doing what we've been doing for 20, 30 years.
The cycle has turned, and you know how we know?
How?
All right. Chevron, Blue Origin, Southwest Airlines, just to name 3 companies. The smallest of those have laid off 10% of their workforce.
Yeah.
ExxonMobil is going to cut 35% of their workforce in the next, or 30% of their workforce in the next year.
Yeah, but that's profit.
No, it's improving margins.
It's improving margin,
helping the shareholders. But we're in a tightening phase.
But that's where you're going to see failing. Homeowners fail paying their mortgages, and that's where you're going to see the 2008 type of dominoes start to fall.
Type of bubble pop,
because you can't replace that when people just aren't paying their mortgages.
You can't. And if you
can hide it. You can hide it as a company, but you can't hide it with debt holders.
And if we take what you said earlier, if I default on $100, it's a me problem. If I default on $1 billion, that's a you problem. Defaulting on even a $1 million house is a me problem.
Yeah.
Until 1 million people default on $1 million house, that's a you problem.
And if you let's see. Already in Alabama, we've laid off 10,000 jobs?
Probably a bunch. I don't know.
For the USA AID.
If all that goes through, I would say easy.
No, it's already. I mean, we've already, like, UAB has stopped research and furloughed some workers.
Well, we don't know that they're gone yet. We'll see where the court system is. But chances are they ain't coming back.
Yeah. So now, housing prices fall.
Mm-hmm.
Now all the speculative buyers are in trouble.
Right. But then you're going to get the only people who aren't wearing it are institutions or companies. And then you're going to get these people like BlackRock that are going to come in and buy up all these recently foreclosed houses because, like, you and I, the average person, doesn't have the capital. You know who does?
I think
Equity.
BlackRock over-levered. I think we're sitting on a house of cards, and we have been since 2008 because we did not effectively reset the economy the way it should have. We just threw a bunch of money at it to make it better.
Companies are tightening to prepare for that. The companies see it coming. If you want to know what's going to happen in the economy, watch hiring.
Is Buffett still cash heavy and everything? I think yeah.
My friend. So I'm friends with a lot of people who do investment podcasts.
Yeah.
And we'll bring one of them on and talk about the economy. Warren Buffett closed out 2 positions. He just did his disclosure for this quarter.
Yeah.
He closed out 2 positions that sent shockwaves through people who watch financial markets. He closed out 2 S&P 500 ETFs.
Ooh. That means he thinks the S&P 500 is going to eat shit.
And so what he's bought are companies like Coke and Domino's, who are recession-proof. They're cheap staples.
Yeah. I like Coca-Cola.
That tells you where he's at. That tells you where the Oracle of Omaha's head is at. You combine that with all these major corporations laying folks off, and you said this a second ago about home mortgages. The consumer sentiment for home builders, the people who build single-family dwellings, is at a 5-month low. It's actually negative now. It's turned. And so now it's actually where it was above 50%, meaning positive sentiment. Now it's at like 44%. Those people see a recession coming. They see housing starts lower. They see labor, like skilled labor, is less available. Like, do you think the people who have been laid off from the federal government can go and be a carpenter, can put a roof on? They're not that sort of labor.
Right.
They're scientists. They're doctors. They're data analysts. They're lawyers.
Fucking
they're
nerds.
They are fucking nerds. But those people can't afford or aren't trained to fill those jobs, to fill those houses. The people that are, we're currently deporting.
Yeah. We're in a tight spot here, but luckily Elon's going to save us.
Yeah.
You know,
Mr. Musk going to save us all.
He's going to save us. We're going to be just fine while he takes every last dime from the federal government.
He brings you in for a great big
have you
hug.
noticed, like, he did not cut any of the agencies that give him subsidies.
Of course not.
Like,
And I'm telling you, I think what he's going to do is he and his other billionaire friends are going to fill the service void left by the cutting of these agencies. What they're doing is intentionally creating a massive demand. They're creating markets that the government previously filled, and all they have to do to meet the demand is recreate the FAA on a private basis. Hire those air traffic controllers, pay them less.
So I think we've both agreed that there is a constitutional crisis occurring right now.
Yeah.
The economy is in trouble going forward. I don't see anything improving for 2 years, maybe
At least.
maybe 4.
And I hate to say it, we as average Americans, we as the working class, I hope everything comes out roses and I'm wrong. But if we're not wrong about how all this works and how all this is going, the harder we hit this iceberg, the bigger the wake-up call is going to be.
That I wanted to get to that. Like, what do you see the backlash being? Let's say all this, hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs.
People out of jobs. The social safety net is cut, so there's not even like unemployment and things to fall back on.
Food stamps,
right? SNAP. Head Start takes it. Like all these things that people rely on. And don't get me started on teachers when the Department of Education shutters and all those education grants stop coming. Class sizes get bigger. Teachers are laid off.
No. We'll privatize education. It'll be just fine. We'll give school vouchers.
Right.
We'll privatize education, and we'll let you know exactly when Jesus is coming back.
We'll have an entire class about that. Revelation.
Bring back white Jesus.
Right. Nobody likes Korean Jesus. Anyway.
Which, by the way, if you go to Montgomery, there are tons of Korean churches. It's hilarious.
Is it?
Yeah, they got Korean Jesus out front.
Love it. But yeah, we agree that DOGE is an unconstitutional power grab. Now, there's nothing constitutional about it, but the concern is if the people who determine what's unconstitutional support DOGE's work, regardless of intellectual honesty or upholding the Constitution, do they have any political desire to do so? Is the big open question, and it's one that I think we're going to see answered, and that's going to be a watershed moment for this country.
Well, I can't believe that as of right now, the American people are letting an autistic asshole take a sledgehammer to every law Congress has made for the past 30 years.
That's what they're doing, and 35% of America is cheering it. 48% of America was like, hell no on arrival. And that remainder, I think, are people who voted for Donald Trump, who were true believers, who have just had the blindfold ripped off. We're talking about farmers who aren't getting aid payments. We're talking about doctors and nurses and educated people.
Oh, are you telling me that people that voted for the lepers eating face party are shocked that they got their face eaten by leopards?
Are suddenly shocked that their face is being eaten. That's what has to happen for people to wake up to the fleecing that's happening.
Now, do people like you and me that live in a deep red state, that our family members we've been butting heads with for decades.
Years.
How should we react? Am I going to point and say, ha, 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 you're a fucking moron? Or are we going to try to say, all right, this is how we rebuild?
We should say, all right, get on board. This is how we rebuild. And that's going to be the biggest issue is I had no problem with someone voting for George Bush. I voted for John McCain.
John McCain was a good man.
So I don't have an issue with conservatism in principle. I don't. But it is going to, based on that, to people who sit where we sit, it's difficult for me to accept that people who are otherwise logical and educated have allowed themselves to be convinced that the world's richest man is out for them. And not just him, Donald Trump's entire class of people that he rolls with. It is going to be very hard for him not to be like, I fucking tried to tell you. But I think we as Americans, if we want to dig our way out of that and we want to reset society to a degree and reorient it back to the people, we've got to welcome the people into the tent, as hard as that may be. As much as I want to be, I told you so, I need to bite my tongue. And I might be tasting a lot of blood in the coming months, but I will.
I completely disagree with you.
Okay.
I think there needs to be some sort of reckoning.
Oh, I agree there needs to be a reckoning.
People need to understand that the choices they made have now come home to roost.
That they voted for this.
Yes. And specifically, the types of people that they chose to put in power have now done everything to destroy their lives that they possibly could. And that they did this to themselves. And that they need to come to terms with that before they can move forward.
They do. There needs to be, and I guess in my mind's eye, I was thinking of a person who acknowledges, oh my God, how was I so blind? What have I done?
That needs to happen.
Yeah.
You cannot have somebody.
When that happens, I think we need to welcome that person with open arms.
But there's going to be, when this thing flips, and it will flip.
Quick.
There's going to be a lot of bandwagon people that are just there for power.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that these people be shunned and absolutely pushed out of any type of political movement in the state.
So I'm talking about those family members of ours.
Okay. Well,
how do you deal with them? Because it's hard for me because I tried to tell them.
Right.
Tried hard to tell them Todd's blue in the face. How do you deal with them? I mean, the grifters, sure, fuck Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Or Rojogan, but your Uncle Johnny, so to speak. Like, what do you do with him?
I mean, I've specifically sent text messages and emails that I have saved on my phone, so I can go back and be like, "Remember when I told you
that this was going to happen?
This was going to happen." Like, I've got at least 10 or 15 of those for family members.
I've got a few
friends.
starred too,
and I'm waiting to be like, "Yep, remember when I told you this was going to happen?" And you were like, no. Here we are. Will you believe me?
Yeah.
Can
I show you more?
Yes.
I was right here. Where else am I right?
That's where I'm going to try to start the conversation.
The thing that always puzzles me about my family, I used to have the best political arguments with my uncle, who's super smart. He's a CEO of a major corporation. Self-made man, incredible guy. He voted for McCain and Romney, voted against Obama twice. The last two of elections, or last three, he went Clinton, Biden, Harris. And so to the rest of the family, oh, he's just a liberal. No. For the first 8 presidential elections he voted in, he voted Republican. Let me ask you, did he leave the party or did the party leave him?
Yeah, the party left him. I can't tell you what the Republican Party stands for today.
I don't know.
And a little bit the same with the Democrats. The Democrats are anti-Trump. I can't tell you what they're for.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't come out and fought for anything. So, and not only that, but we live in this 24-hour anger cycle.
Yeah. Reaction, anger, move on.
Yes. And anger is great for ratings, which is why so many podcasters, news organizations, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, all those assholes, stroke anger.
They are there.
Same with MSNBC.
They're there for ratings.
Yes.
They're not there for news.
Oh, they're entertainment. They got sued for being news one time, and they said they were entertainment.
And they literally said in a court pleading they're entertainment.
There were no. I think they said no reasonable person could construe this as news. This is clearly entertainment, even though it says Fox News at the bottom.
Fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced.
Yeah.
If you have to, yeah.
But
I'm saying like the MSNBC, same thing, stoking Trump fears and like doing all this. And
but I will say, with what's currently going on in the government, you should be afraid. You now is the time to be afraid. And so I absolutely think mainstream cable is, and I hate the term mainstream media. If you use it, I dock your
more
IQ,
like the lamestream media.
I dock your IQ like 15 points when you say that, because like you can't paint these people with a broad brush. But I do think television is entertainment. Print media is the way to go.
Yeah, but print media is dead.
Yeah,
I mean,
print media is dead, and with it the quality of information. But to bring it back, DOGE sucks. None of that's legal. They are stealing from you. They are screwing from you. They are greasing the palms of the billionaires. They are inflating the billionaire economy. They are depressing the labor market. They are depressing wages, and they are going to fuck you at the end of the day, and they won't buy you dinner first.
I never thought I'd see the day where Alabama representatives would vote against pork in Alabama.
Right. Vote against defense is where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. They're voting for the downfall of the Alabama economy.
But there's going to be a reckoning, whether people want it or not. It's coming.
I just hope the violence isn't as bad as I think it could be.
I do too. And I hope the violence is directed correctly. Because if you want to know where to stoke your ire, it's not your neighbor that voted for Harris or Trump. It's the billionaire that's been manipulating them.
Well, hopefully I'd like to see some rainbows in the future, but there's got to be some rain first. And
I see it, it's thundering out there. Yeah, the thunder rolls.
Well, I'm the ghost of General Smedley Butler, and I'm here with the ghost of Judge James Horton, and this has been an incredibly depressing podcast.
We'll see you.
Thanks.